him taking a chainsaw to his political enemies. Is that you?
Somebody said, I know this is off topic, but how do you feel DEI not really help black people destiny? You just have to talk about the policies themselves. Some policies are probably fine, some aren't. DEI is just very vague. It doesn't mean anything. You have to talk about a particular program or policy.
Patel retruthed, reposting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that.
Is that you reposting it was my question.
And that's me at the top.
You said FBI agents were responsible for the violence on January 6th, and I quote you here, beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that what you said?
That's complete.
It looks like you have a preponderance of evidence suggesting there may have been federal law enforcement involved in making January 6th happen. I'll get you to beyond a reasonable doubt.
Incorrect, and I appreciate the opportunity to address that.
I'll give you an opportunity in writing, but this is my time. Is that what you said?
That's completely incorrect, and
that was
January 6th, and I quote you here, beyond
March 7th, 2023. Can we find that? Timcast, IRL, Kash Patel. March 27th. Oh, this is May 27th. Streamed 1 year ago. October 24th. This can't be at 3 years ago. There's no way this is at November 8th. Wait, what the fuck? How many times did he talk to this fucking guy? What the fuck? Timcast IRL. This? March 7th. And he said, I'll get you to beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, he said that quote was taken out of context. What did he say? Hold on.
Depicting him taking a chainsaw to his political enemies. Is that you? Kash Patel retruthed, reposting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that.
Is that you reposting it was my question.
And that's me at the top.
You said...
What does that mean?
Kash Patel retruthed, reposting that to his political enemies. Is that you? Kash Patel retruthed, reposting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that.
Is
Wait,
that
did
you
they show the
reposting
meme?
it was my question.
And
what
that's
the
me
fuck?
at the top.
I want to see the meme.
You said FBI
He's a meme hoarder. Oh. Jesus Christ. Okay.
agents were responsible for the violence on January 6th, and I quote you here, beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that what you said?
That's completely incorrect, and I appreciate the opportunity to address that.
I'll give you an opportunity in writing, but this is my time now.
Have at it.
An inspector attorney...
Okay, what did he say here? We'll back up 2 minutes and listen.
Mistake the American people get to see this footage of the Capitol Police helping these people. He says it's completely at variance with what the police had said. Maybe the police were lying because if you really want to believe the insurrection narrative, they were in on it. That's what AOC thinks.
Whoa.
It's inside job.
Wait, real quick. Jesus Christ. But remember, okay? Tone down the rhetoric, guys.
I tweeted J6 was an inside job and the left guy wrote at me. But pick one. Did you get kicked off Twitter? No. But maybe. Look, I'll say this to liberals, to Democrats. You got to pick one. Either the police let these people in and there was no insurrection, or the Capitol Police were a part of the insurrection and were in on it the whole time.
Can I just tell you one thing that people might get ticked off at? I'm glad that the videotape footage is getting out there, but I don't think it's a consequential piece of evidence that we need to see right now from the FBI to DOJ to answer the question you posed.
You mean the consequential? Or you don't think it's consequential at all?
To answer the consequential question, right, whether or not that you just posed. I think as a former federal prosecutor and a public defender who defended a lot of these types of cases, what you need to show is whether or not the FBI and government agents were using undercover operatives and informants on the day of January 6th, because if you can show that, you know they've been hang on, but the paperwork shows having run informants, that's a 6-month buildup. Minimum. Right. Minimum. It's not like they just dropped them into the Proud Boys and said, hey, go, don't disrupt, please. So once you prove that, then you defeat the insurrection narrative with the FBI's own documentation. Forget what the videotape shows.
That's just not at all true at all. You can be an informant for things that are totally unrelated to J6 stuff, and they could have had informants that didn't know the totality of what would happen on J6, and they could have been informants that became informants after J6. So none of what he just said there was true at all, but maybe he knows. I don't even know. I don't know anymore.
Just for people who you can't see what's going on in the room, the reason why Kash just said hang on or whatever is because I started smirking and rolling my eyes. And what I meant to convey with that is, come on, we know they were involved.
No, look, I totally agree.
Though. I'm not saying I know definitively. What I'm saying is a reasonable suspicion is that there were agents. There's a video showing a guy with an earpiece pulling people into the building. All right. You combine that with the evidence of Ray Epps, and it looks like you have a preponderance of evidence suggesting there may have been federal law enforcement involved in making that thing happen.
I'll get you beyond a reasonable doubt. Two pieces of information. Ray Epps was on FBI's most wanted list one day, and the next day he was off of the FBI's most wanted list. There are only two ways that happens. You die, or your informant. Put that aside. Under congressional testimony.
That's not true, but okay.
Jill Sanborn, who I used to work with, the head of the FBI Counterintelligence Division, in charge of all these investigations, testified under oath when Senator Cruz asked her, flat out, were there federal agents involved with January 6th? And she said, quote, Senator, I can't answer that at this time. Not if the answer was definitively no, having been a DOJ FBI guy myself, she would have gone there and said, nope, absolutely not.
No, just think of how stupid that sounds. Think of how stupid. So if I ask you a yes or no question and the answer is yes, and you say, I can't comment on it this time, then that means, or if the answer was no, you'd say no. But if the answer is yes, you can't. No, what the fuck? This is such a stupid fucking point to bring up.
The reason she said I can't answer that is because of the same stonewalling they gave us during Russiagate with Christopher Steele, Halper, and everybody else. It's the same narrative, and I'm telling you they were there.
So you're saying that she said I can't answer that because the answer is yes, and that would compromise whatever their operation was.
Exactly.
But we can process of elimination that because if the answer is no, she would have definitely said no.
I mean, what's the argument they make that she just didn't know and she didn't want to say yes or no definitively?
There is no way the head of the FBI Counterintelligence Division, the number 3 ranking person at the FBI, who is in charge of the January 6th investigation.
No, but you would know that it's standard practice for them to never comment on ongoing investigations. They don't do that. Maybe in a closed door hearing, maybe they could, or if you go through a chain of command for whether you're doing like a FOIA release or whether you have like a special committee that's supposed to hear on like active matters or whatever. But no, the FBI, especially in an open hearing, is not going to be saying like, oh yeah, let me comment on this ongoing thing that we're looking into. That's just never going to happen.
Investigations did not know the answer to that. It is not possible.
Sounds like the answer is yes. Matt Gaetz came out over a year ago saying that there was, I think there was evidence of federal involvement, I believe.
Yeah, here's the other thing. Just follow the money. Everybody wants to know about all the spycraft and all the cool stuff. You know what the FBI has to do to these informants? Pay them. You know what that requires? A bank. Go find out. It's what we did with Steele, right? And I got tortured for it. I went to Paul Ryan and said, give me this one subpoena, and if I'm wrong, you can fire me. And he basically...
Do you always have to pay a confidential informant? I feel like you can also just keep them from getting charged, or you can cooperate with them. Is every CI getting paid? I don't know if that's true. I feel like that's not true. But
tried to fire me anyway.
Wow.
But then I went and got the FBI records and the bank that paid him. And then the floodgates opened. Game over. They said, there's no way we used informants to investigate the FISA and Donald Trump and all this crap. Well, if they did it then, are you telling me they really didn't do it now? And
Yeah,
it's taxpayer
and
dollars.
maybe they pay with crypto.
Ooh, maybe.
That's true. And also, I want to say, especially right now, if you Google search this story, the media response is hilarious. They're like,
what's it saying? I didn't.
Oh, just every single story is like, they're lying about what Tucker Carlson said, right? One of the first things Tucker Carlson says in this report is, we've all seen the violence. And he shows video of the violence. And
I see.
They've shown us this over and over again. What they're not telling you is that there's another portion with a permitted, peaceful rally that were led in by police, and that's not a part of their narrative. What they're doing now is they're claiming that Tucker only said it was peaceful because they project, they claim that the right does what they in fact are doing all the time. It's remarkable that if you're paying attention to news, if you are a discerning individual, like most people watching this show, you can see it happening. Like Ukraine Gate, for instance. Joe Biden is on camera engaging in a quid pro, admitting to a quid pro quo, unless you do what I demand, I will withhold federally guaranteed loans to your country, which he has no authority to do. And then when Donald Trump...
all of that is a lie. He was authorized to do it. All of these loan guarantees were contingent on Ukraine cleaning up the corrupt prosecution that they had. This is everything he just said was a lie. But
to investigate it, they accuse him of doing loans to your country, which he has no authority to do. And then when Donald Trump tries to investigate it, they accuse him of doing...
Donald Trump didn't try to investigate that. He just wanted Zelensky to say that they had public investigations going of Hunter Biden when they had none. He wanted him to lie. All of this is a lie. Now, to be fair to Tim Pool, okay, it's probably really hard at this point to be like unbiased when it comes to his Ukraine coverage, because at this point in time, he was being paid some $400,000 a month by Russia to do content on his show. So it's possible that he felt like if he said something that would go against their interests, that maybe they wouldn't continue to compensate him so nicely, but, handsomely.
Attorney General investigation found that that was false. And you said we should impeach judges who rule against Donald Trump, who are, in your words, political terrorists. When this nominee tries to explain all this away, keep one thing in mind. He's testified under oath before a Colorado judge who presided over a Trump case in which he was a witness. And the judge found, and I'm quoting here, he was not a credible witness. His testimony is not only illogical, but completely devoid of any evidence in the record. That's from a judge. Void of any evidence in the record. That's from a judge.
Oh, no, he was claiming.
This is a dangerous time, and I ask all my colleagues to consider whether these plain comments...
So what did we decide about that quote? Oh, he's lying. I mean, he feels like that the Ray Epps shit and the money or whatever, the CIs are beyond a reasonable doubt. He gets you beyond a reasonable doubt because he obviously thinks there was federal involvement in J6. Of course, all of the conservatives do. They all feel that way. That was the conspiracy. Originally, it was Antifa, and then first it was nothing. Well, first it was Patriots, and then when they lost, it was nothing actually happened, or it was Antifa, and then it was the Fedsurrection, and then it went back and forth between Fedsurrection, where the feds were forcing people to go in, or it was Antifa, or nothing happened at all. Tucker Carlson released his videos, and then it was just actually nothing happened. They were just walking, and then it went back to Antifa, and now that Trump has released everybody, now it was a Fedsurrection. So that's where we're at right now.
By this person and by his own Trump administration colleagues should be given a blind eye, just overlooked, or whether, like the warnings of pardoning violent January 6 offenders, they're warnings to be heeded. There is an unfathomable difference between a seeming facade being constructed around this nominee here today and what he has actually done and said in real life when left to his own devices. Conduct shows character. And if you look at history, you see the danger of security chiefs in authoritarian regimes becoming the tools of political power. The characteristics that they often show are that they are vengeful, that they are grandiose, that they are intemperate, that they are partisan and blindly loyal, and that they are servile.
Do you think people around Trump actually believe this, or are they opportunists seeing a chance to rip power? I can't tell anymore. I don't know. I can't tell with these people. I think the people at the top know that it's bullshit, but maybe. Let me debate more of them and bet them. We will find out.
And won't say no. I'm afraid that the history of this nominee's conduct raises those warnings. And I yield my 1 second back.
Before Senator Cornyn, you said you'd like to explain something. I forget the point he made. You can do that now if you want to.
Simply this, Senator. In the collective, all of those statements are taken out of grotesque context. And anyone that thinks my 16 years of service is an exemplar in how I would proceed if confirmed as FBI is intentionally putting false information into the public ether and creating more public discourse. The only thing that will matter if I'm confirmed as a director of the FBI is a de-weaponized, depoliticized system of law enforcement completely devoted to rigorous obedience of the Constitution and a singular standard of justice.
Right. Okay. When he says 16 years of service, he's mainly talking about his like legal stuff, basically. Public defender, trial attorney with the Justice Department, senior aide at House Intelligence Commission. Okay, just checking. Okay.
Before I call on Senator Cornyn, I'd like to say that we've heard about the January 6 pardons. I think it's important that we remind people at the same time of some pardons by the previous administration. Thomas Sanders, a kidnapper who murdered a 12-year-old girl named Lexis and her mother, Sue Ellen Roberts. Adrian Peeler, a Connecticut drug kingpin who was convicted in the death of an 8-year-old boy and his mother. Leonard Peltier, that's already been referred to, that murdered 2 FBI agents. And even Director Wray, at that time former director.
Chairman is 96 years old. Wait, Chuck Grassley? Or Charles? Wait, it's Chuck, right? Jesus Christ, bro. Hello? Are you guys okay?
Director Wray said that shouldn't.
Yo, he's doing pretty good for 91. 91 years old? So what, he was, this guy like remembers World War II? Hold on, 91 means he would have been born in like 34 or 1934, 1935? What the fuck? Oh, 1933? Jesus Christ.
Have happened, and Judge Michael Conahan, who took kickbacks for wrongly sending juveniles for profit detention centers, and Alex Saab, who laundered illicit proceeds for narcotics terrorist Nicolas Maduro, and was a key connection between Venezuela and Iran, and 5 family members of his own family. President Biden did that. Senator.
Welcome, Mr. Patel. Do you believe America is an exceptional nation?
It's the greatest nation.
Yes.
Your family went through a lot to get here.
Hell
Sure
yeah.
did.
Glazing
And
time.
your life story is, I think, a great example of people pursuing the American dream. Do you believe a large part of what makes America an exceptional nation is the rule of law?
It is one of the fundamental precepts that determines that.
And why is that?
because without a singular application of a rule of law, we go back to the Uganda that my father fled in Idi Amin.
I believe that the two most important institutions in America to preserve and protect and enforce the rule of law are the FBI and the Department of Justice. And the sort of politicalization that Senator Graham and others have already talked about during the Crossfire Hurricane investigation or project of James Comey at the FBI and the abuse of intelligence tools like Title I of Section 702 are a betrayal of American values and adherence to the rule of law. And I think your biggest task is going to be, along with Pam Bondi at the Office of the Attorney General, is to restore the rule of law to the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Pam Bondi, she's the AG pick. Has she had her hearing yet?
Willing to do that?
Absolutely, Senator.
Without regard to partisan affiliation or politics?
Absolutely.
Wait, no. Yes. Okay. Fuck you.
Do you believe President Trump, as the commander-in-chief, needs access to all of the lawfully available intelligence that can be collected by the American intelligence community in order to inform him so that he can make good judgments as commander-in-chief to assure the safety and security of the American people?
Having been responsible for the collection and predication and promulgation of that intelligence, I firmly believe he and every president must have it.
And so you would not support any impractical or perhaps immaterial or unworkable ways to inhibit the flow of that information to President Trump?
No, I would not.
So let me just ask you, you and I have talked about this a number of times, and this has come up before in a number of different contexts. But as I've always said, I think Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is the most important law that most Americans have never heard of. Yeah. But when I was questioning my fellow Texan, John Ratcliffe, who now has been confirmed as the director of the CIA, about this, we talked about some of the reforms that have been made to Section 702 over the years. This has been an ongoing conversation here in Congress. People like my colleague here, Senator Lee, and others have proposed reforms, which I think have gone a long way to help protect the privacy rights of American citizens. But let me just point out some of the improvements that have been made over the years.
Can't they just get like a big TV? This like bringing, like to have their images preloaded on, this bringing giant signs. So fucking funny.
This is not the same 702 that was in effect during President Trump's first terms. These are a number of things that we did together on a bipartisan basis to make sure that the balance between the national security interests of the American people and the privacy and constitutional rights of American citizens were protected. Do you agree with that?
Yes, Senator, I do.
And I think Senator Tillis, with his typical outstanding graphics, has a wonderful handout which lays all of that out. But one of the things that's come up, and we've discussed this, is the idea that in order to query lawfully collected intelligence under Section 702, that somehow, if a U.S. person's name is involved, that a warrant would be required. Now, you're a lawyer who's represented defendants as a public defender. You understand that what probable cause is required, what sort of evidence is required to be produced to a judge in order to get a warrant. Do you believe a warrant requirement is a practical and workable or even a necessary element of 702?
If I may just give some context on that, Senator. Having a background not only utilizing FISA and 702 as a national security prosecutor, but as a civilian at JSOC and later as an intelligence official and the Deputy Director of National Intelligence, 702 collection formulates over 45% of the presidential daily briefing that you referred to earlier.
I actually have heard it's as high as 60%, but it's a lot.
It's a lot. Wow. And the issue for me is not with FISA and 702. The issue has been those that have been in government service and abused it in the past. And so we must work with Congress to provide the protections necessary for American citizens, dealing with these matters, including hostage rescue operations in real time, which we use FISA collection to find and save American hostages. Having a warrant requirement to go through that information in real time is just not comportive with the requirement to protect American citizenry. I'm all open to working with Congress on finding a better way forward. But right now, these improvements that you've made go a long way.
Well, and Director Ratcliffe said that he did not believe that, given the context of 702 collection, whether a foreign target communicates with a U.S. person, that there'd be sufficient evidence to go to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court or any other court to demonstrate probable cause. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, just in real time, Senator. Excuse me.
Okay, I don't care about the glazing.
Both true, and that's these improvements that
give me to the non-glazers.
Both true, and that's why we need to.
Senator Klobuchar.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, I think you know that I have great respect for the men and women of the FBI, their mission, fidelity, bravery, integrity. I believe they deserve a director who respects their work and sacrifices, and they deserve a director who's focused on their mission. This is not about bingo cards or games. This is not about revenge. This is about the safety of our country and the people that work in the FBI. And the FBI runs on facts. It runs on truth. Truth matters. And without truth, the whole system breaks down. You said that Donald Trump has every right to tell the world that in 2020, 2016, and every other election in between was rigged by our government because they were. Yes or no, did you say that?
I don't have that statement in front of me. But
okay, that was from August, to tell the world that in 2020, 2016, and every other election in between was rigged by our government because they were. Yes or no, did you say that?
I don't have that statement in front of me. But
Okay, that was from August 27th, 2023 Thrive Time show. I'll put it on the record. These claims made in that statement were rejected by courts, including by Republican judges. Is that correct?
I don't have enough of the facts in front of me to make that assessment.
I will put that statement on the record.
How can nobody have any of the facts? Bro, it's an infallible argument. I don't know. I didn't hear shit about that. Election rigging? What? What? That's wild. I don't know. I'll check into it later.
But I think everyone in this committee, including the Republican members, knows that these statements were rejected by courts. You were asked about the police officers in the Capitol who testified in the January 6 hearings, and you accused them of lying. Is that correct or not correct?
I don't think that's accurate.
Okay, Joe Peck's podcast, March 2024, we'll put it on the record. I was there. The police officers were heroes that day.
Yes.
Did you post on your personal social media account in May of 2024, January 6, never an insurrection, cowards in uniforms exposed. They broke the chain of command.
I believe you're referencing a post that was shown in part earlier. I don't have it in front of me.
You posted it, and it was on your account, and we will again put that out there once more as we go on. I don't want to lose any more time on this, but every one of these, there's a record of it, and you haven't answered. You promoted a COVID vaccine, reversal, or detox supplement. One scientist said, I quote, none of these substances in any form would minimize side effects from a COVID-19 vaccine. That is preying on innocent people. Did you perform clinical trials before you made that claim?
I'm not a doctor, so no.
But you did promote this supplement and told people that it would reverse or mitigate the side effects from COVID vaccine.
Did I give people an opportunity to make an independent choice for what's best for their families? Yes.
You did that last year, correct?
I don't have it in front of me against that.
Hey, here, okay, quick thing. Especially for retro thing, listen, if you're a staffer or anybody, you end up listening to my show or whatever, I don't know, okay? It doesn't matter, I guess, at the end of the day. But if you want better clips, you should have, like, you need to also have the big boards of every truth or retruth or whatever the fuck else. You need to be able to show this stuff. I think is important to have it in a picture format. Because when you just read the quotes off, I don't know if it hits as hard. Not that it matters. I don't think anybody's changing their opinion on this bullshit anyway, so who the fuck knows? I don't know.
Senator?
Mr. Patel, the FBI tackles some of the most complex threats that we face: terrorists, hostile foreign powers, violent gangs, fentanyl, criminal organizations. Your mission, though, has been to go after people. I've looked at it. I've read this stuff. Yes or no? When Trump wins, did you say this? When Trump wins in 2024 and is in power in 2025, we can prosecute them, referring to Justice Department officials for an actual RICO statute violation for criminally organizing the United States government to break the law to rig presidential elections. Did you say that, yes or no?
Again, Senator, you're reading a partial statement, so I'm unable to fully respond.
Okay, again, we'll put it on the record. X22 report podcast 20, that is from...
Also, I feel like if you have one or two of these quotes, this is just from like a debate rhetoric point of view. If you have like one or two of these quotes, or I'm sorry, if you've got like 7 of these quotes, I don't know if reading 7 of them matters. You should read like 1 or 2. And then when they do this, oh, like I don't have the context or that's out of context, you should just hammer one quote. Like, okay, well, what is the context? Like explain what the context is. People do this all the time when I accuse them like, hey, don't you support like Houthi terrorists or don't you support, like these types of things? And they're like, well, no, that quote was out of context. Oh, well, what is the context? Because it kind of sounds like that is the full context that you are fully supportive of it. They never actually answer that. They just say out of context. And that's like a get out of jail free card. Like the Klobuchar should just... Oh, okay. Well, what do you mean? Can you explain more? Expand on that statement. Or just ask them directly. Do you think the FBI was in charge of coordinating the J6 riots? Like, I don't know. I feel like that's just hammer home on it. But
I'll get you the date, about a year ago.
They get 5 minutes. You wouldn't let them ramble in response. Well, they don't have to ramble. They're not answering. You just say, I reclaim my time and then refocus and ask again. But I was saying, I don't know how much it matters. Like, oh, cool. She's got 8 quotes of him saying the same thing. All Trumples already believe this. Like, what's the point? I don't know.
One of the names on your list was Bill Barr. Chairman Grassley has called him one of the most capable cabinet officials I've ever been able to vote for. Senator Graham has said, I have nothing but total respect and admiration for the job done by William Barr as Attorney General of the United States. Is Bill Barr on your list of whatever you want to call them, been referred to as an enemies list? You called them deep state after serving his country as the Attorney General of the United States. Is he on your list because of a personal vendetta?
Well, it's not whatever we want to call it, Senator. With all due respect, it's not an enemies list. That is a total mischaracterization.
I asked you, I actually used the words you used for the list, which was deep state, right? That's what you put at the
It is
top.
a glossary
Against
in
the
the
Attorney
back.
General of the United States. Is it because of a personal vendetta that he's on the list? You're under oath.
I have no personal vendetta against Bill
Okay,
Barr.
he said about you would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. That was actually in writing in his book. He had virtually, about you, no experience that would qualify you to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency, and that your appointment, as noted by Senator Durbin as Deputy Director to the FBI, would happen over his dead body. Is it, yes or no, why you would put him on the list of deep state as a former Attorney General, Trump Attorney General of the United States, because he wouldn't break the law for Donald Trump? Is that why?
Absolutely not.
As you know, he repeatedly told the president in no uncertain terms that he did not see evidence of fraud that would have affected the outcome of the election. Did you say in February of 2021 that the election stuff was never my job and I stayed all of it all, I stayed out of that stuff?
Again, I don't know what comment you're referring to, but I'm sure you're reading a piece of something.
You said it on Pushback on a podcast. Is it true, though, that in December of 2020, you reached out to the Trump acting deputy attorney general and asked him to investigate a conspiracy theory claiming that people in Italy had used military technology and satellites to remotely tamper with voting machines in the U.S. and switch votes for Trump?
Genuine question, what stops them from lying? Like, what could they do? So technically, whenever you're sworn in, you're giving testimony that is supposed to be under oath and truthful. And if you lie, I believe anytime you lie after being sworn in, it would be considered an obstruction of justice, lying under oath. No, it'd be considered perjury, not obstruction of justice, sorry. So perjury is, I think, technically a criminal charge. I don't know how much, if it's like just a misdemeanor or whatever the fuck. Wait, are there federal misdemeanors or are they all felonies? Or is felony and misdemeanor just a state thing, actually? No, I'm not actually sure. Fuck. Whoops. Wait. No. Okay.
From Biden to from Trump.
But who's going to charge them, right? Because it would have to be Trump's DOJ that would charge them with crime. So they should just lie because there's no point in not lying, right? If you lie, then Trump's DOJ is going to charge you, right? And Trump has already pardoned people that have lied on his behalf, like Roger Stone. So why would you ever answer any of these things honestly if you feel like they could be used against you?
Tamper with voting machines in the U.S. and switch votes for Trump from Trump to Biden. Is that true?
What was the date?
That was out of December of 2020.
I was chief of staff to the Department of Defense, so I don't believe that's accurate anyway.
That came out of testimony before Congress. I will give it to you. Have you referred to the media as the most powerful enemy of the United States that they have ever seen? Is that right?
Again, you're reading a quote. I take that
It's
you're
to
reading it accurately.
CPAC 22324. You said we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens who helped Joe Biden rig the elections. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Is that something you said?
That's a partial statement of what I said.
Steve Bannon's podcast. You also said you would put the entire fake news mafia press corps on your list. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
I don't have that in front of me.
Benny Johnson's podcast, B2123. You have said that the FBI, including today, you said that they remain utterly corrupt. This is an agency with agents who have taken down terrorists, taken down bank robbers, taken down crime. And you wrote that the FBI has become so thoroughly compromised that it will remain a threat to the people unless drastic measures are taken. Do you know that under Chris Wray's leadership, he took over at a very difficult time, we all know that, appointed by President Trump, that during his tenure, the applications to the FBI has, in fact, tripled? Do you think people would be applying to that agency, like in those numbers, if they thought it was so corrupt?
The American public's trust in it is at 40%. That's an all-time low.
Did you say that the FBI headquarters should be shut down and reopened as a museum of the deep state?
Mr. Chairman, are we allowed to go an extra time?
Let's see. You get a second round. Before I call on Senator Lee.
Could he just answer the question if he said that the FBI headquarters, where they investigate cybercrime and terrorism, should be shut down and open as a deep state,
Mr. Chair.
as a museum? Did he say that the headquarters should be shut down?
Mr. Chair.
I deserve an answer to that question. He is asking to be head of the FBI, and he said that their headquarters should be shut down.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
You got anything you want to say, Mr. Patel, before I go on to Senator Lee?
Simply this. If the best attacks on me are going to be false accusations and grotesque mischaracterizations, the only thing this body is doing is defeating the credibility of the men and women at the FBI. I stood with them here in this country. In every theater of war we have, I was on the ground in service of this nation. And any accusations leveled against me that I would somehow put political bias before the Constitution are grotesquely unfair. And I will have you reminded that I have been endorsed by over 300,000 law enforcement officers to become the next director of the FBI. Let's ask them.
Mr. Chairman, I am quoting his own words from September of 2024. It is his own words. It is not some conspiracy. It is what Mr. Patel actually said himself. Facts matter.
You forget that you had 3 minutes in the next round to say what you just said.
Okay, I'll say him again.
Okay. Before I call Lee.
Mr. Chair, just parliamentary inquiry, and it was on time. It wasn't disputing any of the debate, but I intend to keep to my 7 minutes, and I appreciate you keeping everyone to it. If we go over, can we have that decrement against the time in the second round? If a member goes over, that was actually 10 minutes, Mr. Chair.
I'm not sure that I want to. Sometimes it's faster to get things done here, just letting people shout than it does to shut them up.
Mr. Chairman,
You're a wise man, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Before we go to Lee.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, what do you want?
I love this guy. Mr. Chairman, I'm like Senator Tillis. I mean, if we're going to start this, I want an extra 3 minutes.
Well,
now, my friend Senator Klobuchar, my 3 minutes over.
So, hear
she
what
really
you're
go
saying
3
is
minutes
the chairman
over?
wasn't a very good chairman by not shutting her up. But I've gone through this before, and I think I know how to handle it. And get
Well, I think you're a star-spangled awesome chairman. I just want to say that for the record. But if you're going to let somebody over there go 3 minutes over, I want my extra 3 minutes.
Well, let's see if it's abused by anybody else before we make that decision.
I'm just telling you, I'm going to abuse it.
Well, I'm not going to let you abuse it.
You're a good man, Mr. Chairman.
Before I go to Lee, I want to put a statement in the record from 56 former FBI agents wrote to this committee to support this nominee. Quote, never has the FBI faced such an urgent and compelling need for comprehensive reform as it does today. Mr. Patel has proven he possesses the breadth of experience required to address these challenges. His leadership, expertise, and vision make him uniquely qualified to guide the FBI through this pivotal moment. For these reasons, we stand in full support of Kash Patel's nomination. Any objection? So ordered. Mr. Lee.
Mr. Patel, while we're talking about your awards, let's talk about the cowards in uniform comment for a moment, can we?
Please.
Would you like to tell us what that was? Put it in context. Help the.
This is the museum comment, by the way.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. I'd shut.
That's a pretty bad quote, but also why a 6-second quote? We don't have like a minute. But okay.
Committee understand what that was about.
I think it's important. Thank you, Senator. During that time on January 6th, I was serving as Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense. And days prior, we had received the authorization from the President to issue the National Guard to protect you and your colleagues. But as you know, the law requires a request before the deployment of that Guard. That request did not come in until the afternoon of January 6th. Once that request came in, this, unfortunately, as has been confirmed by his own testimony, I believe, the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, failed to immediately deploy the National Guard and instead took a break to speak to media and make personal phone calls. That endangered the safety of you and your colleagues. And if you look at the Biden Inspector General report, we at the Department of Defense authorized the fastest cold start of the National Guard since World War II and the largest occupation since the American Civil War. And the Biden Justice Department said that we, including myself, as Chief of Staff, when it came to the deployment and employment of the National Guard, acted swiftly and without...
Do you think the context would save him there? If not, then it doesn't matter. Having a longer clip would just make fewer people watch it. I guess, maybe, I don't know.
undue delay.
So that's what you were talking about. And that's why you had the reference to the UCMJ. Tell us what that means.
The Uniform Code of Military Justice is for uniformed officers who betray the code of justice and also act inappropriately. And I
go to an hour and 12 minutes here.
The cog. What's cog
the
stand
wheel,
for?
you know, the whole like wheel of government. Instead of having 67 people that can say no and don't want to follow your lawful command, you just have a chain of command that goes from point to point, right? So I think you need way less people. You don't need this massive number. I think that is a fiction of the deep state. Not to mention, again, you save money. Then you need to do a whole bunch of things with personnel. For like instance, at FBI, you need to stock it with the director, deputy director, and the heads of the separate divisions. Same thing at CIA and DOD that are going to support. And the media, again, is distorting it already. Trump's going to install loyalists. Kash Patel's a Trump loyalist. What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. Like if the guy...
Well, what it means is they are worried that you're going to carry out orders from the president that somebody with more integrity would say no to because they're unconstitutional or illegal. That's what it means. It's pretty obvious, but okay.
Gives me a lawful chain of command authority. You want me to not execute it? That's
yes. If it's an unlawful command, yeah, that's the point of pledging an allegiance to the Constitution and not to the president or to a king or.
What does that even mean? Like if the guy gives me a lawful chain of command authority, you want me to not execute it? That's unlawful.
Like listen to how he phrases that: a lawful chain of command. Like so, anything that the president says, you have to do because it's going down the chain of command. Like that's. But
if I violate it, he was the president. If he's the president again, the same thing should apply. So then we need to decrease what I call government creep with personnel. The FBI's footprint has gotten so freaking big. And the biggest problem the FBI has come out of its intel shops. I'd break that component out of it. I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening it the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops. You're cops. Go be cops. Go chase down murderers and rapists and drug dealers and violent offenders. What do you need 7,000 people there for? Same thing.
Oh, see, fuck. Well, now fuck. I don't want to defend this fucking loser, but like now I feel like that quote wasn't even accurately used against him. Like, it's a stupid quote for other reasons, but it's not like he was saying we need to shut this building down and shut down the FBI. He's just saying that he feels like the FBI doing intelligence work is a waste of time, which is stupid for other reasons. But, like, it's not technically him saying we should just fire them all or get rid of them, right?
Thing with DOJ. What are all these people doing here? Looking for the next government promotion, looking for their next fancy government title, looking for their parachute out of government. So while you're bringing in the right people, you also have to shrink government.
So a massive government reform.
Yeah. You got to work with Congress to eliminate the...
Is this Tim Pool's dad, Sean Ryan?
It's just one of the things we did when I was deputy DNI. We got to DNI and I was like, okay, what do all these people do? We've got the CIA, so why do I have analysts doing the CIA's job here? Why do I have a floor of them? Like, give me a good answer. I don't know everything. I don't know a lot. But if you can give me an answer that satisfies their existence, I'm all in. Well, we just have our own people. Okay, well, now we don't.
Well, I mean, like you need like the CIA and the FBI have different jobs and they do different things. No, I don't know. Like, don't you need people for cooperation and coordination? Wasn't that a big issue with I think 9/11? Was you had information from the CIA that wasn't making it over to the FBI as efficiently as possible. So you need people now that are helping you with some of that coordination. But
to Congress and zeroed out a bunch of billets, and they hated us for it.
Why? Why would Congress hate you for that?
Not Congress, though.
Who was responsible for not deploying the National Guard on J6? I don't know. In all the material I've read, it's hard to come to like any single answer. I don't think there's like a single person who fucked up. I just think it was a huge fuck up at the top of the chain of command because nobody really knew how crazy and serious things were. And then once they started to get the ball rolling on the deployment, like people just really wanted to avoid the bad optics. But for some reason, it wasn't being conveyed to, or the people at the top didn't understand like how serious the situation was. Yeah.
The public. Congress is like, great, you saved us money. You're the only agency that returned money this year because we didn't spend our entire budget. We were literally funding seats with no humans in them for years. And what the government creep that I was talking about is these agencies go to Congress every year. And again, this is why it's a thing of decades. I need 5 more seats here. I need 10 more seats here. Okay, you keep doing that. How's that going? Oh, we'll fill that seat next year. We're in the process of, interviewing people for that section. And it keeps, no one returns money. It's the biggest fiction in government that you can't return money. Every agency and department that I've ever worked for, when it comes to the fiscal end of the year, they're like, go on trips, go spend money. What? Just give it back to Congress. We can't do that.
I don't know if this ever happens. I'm not believing this, but who knows?
Thought any delay to have the National Guard arrive on scene here must be called out, whether it was a fellow Republican or not, especially someone under my auspices running the Department of Defense.
Okay, so moments ago when Senator Durbin displayed a chart with that quote, there was a reference in part of it to the UCMJ. That's what it was referring to.
Yes, sir.
Those were the cowards in uniform. Those people who didn't do what they were supposed to do, and a lot of people were put in danger as a result.
That's correct, Senator.
Okay, thank you. That's very good to know.
There is a federal agent that you could argue like neglected their duty on January 6th and didn't do what they should have done, who had like direct control of the National Guard. Nobody will ever say this, but the person who was at the top of the chain of command for DC was Donald Trump. He was like up the chain of command. The DC National Guard reports through the federal government because it's not a state. There is no state National Guard. Lieutenant of the Army was the one thing, and then it goes to the Milley was the I always mix up the names, Milley and Miller. It was Miller, right? Christopher Miller. Next, I think, was the dude. Is it the head of the duty? And then up from that is to, Miller. Yeah, Miller. That's what I said, right? Christopher Miller. And then from there it goes to Trump. I think it was just 3 people, I think, from there. Trump is the head of the chain of command for the DC National Guard. He was watching it all unfold on TV. He had a direct visual of what was going on. There were Congress people calling him. He could have made that call at any point in time, and there would have been no confusion. It would have cut through everything. The very highest guy at the top of the chain of command ordered something like,
I do find it significant that we've heard all kinds of aspersions cast in your direction by people who do not know you, by people who do not share your worldview, by people who do not share your commitment to the Constitution or your commitment to public service. I find it astounding that they're willing to say this amidst such great ignorance, and I find it equally heartening that the 56 former FBI officials who know you.
I don't believe so, Senator.
Mr. Patel, are you familiar?
Hawley's going to dick ride as well, right? These guys are all going to be dick riding. How much blame would you send to Pelosi? What was her role supposed to be? Pelosi's blame is 0. Pelosi had no role in J6 coordination. I think that the Speaker of the House has a direct connect to I want to say it's the Sergeant at Arms who does like inside building security for like people who are visiting, but not anywhere near, not even like, I don't even know if they would have had as much presence as like the Secret Service. That's not supposed to be like the main body defending the Capitol from like threats or whatever. So Pelosi and all that responsibility through the House is 0. The Sergeant at Arms, are these people inside? No, we're not at all tasked for a job like that.
Familiar with the recent actions of the FBI in this regard, including this memo that I have right here, making a list of Catholic churches and parishes that they regard as potentially suspect and directing the potential recruitment of informants and other spies, let's be honest, into those parishes?
I'm familiar with that memo, Senator.
Mr. Patel, would you commit to me that you will, if you are confirmed, that you will finally and officially withdraw this memo and make it clear that this is not only unacceptable, but that it is an absolute violation of the First Amendment that every American enjoys under the Constitution of the United States?
If I'm confirmed, Senator, yes.
Will you also commit to me that you will conduct an investigation and find out who wrote this memo, who spread this memo, the field offices involved in this memo? Because I can tell you, we've had your predecessor sit right where you're sitting, and he has repeatedly lied to, there's no other word for it, lied to this committee.
Wow.
Thank you for visiting with me in my office. At almost exactly the moment that you were talking to me, the Department of Justice was firing more than a dozen lawyers who worked with the special counsel, Jack Smith, simply because they were involved in that case. You've committed that the FBI will not be politicized. So here's your first test. Will you commit that you will not tolerate the firing of the FBI agents who worked with the special counsel's office on these investigations?
Nope. Senator, I appreciate the time to visit with you.
It is a yes or no answer, and it is your first test.
Senator, nope. Every FBI employee will be held to the absolute same standard, and no one will be terminated for case assignments.
And I'm not going to accept that answer, because if you can't commit that those FBI agents will be protected from political retribution, we can't accept you as FBI director.
All FBI employees will be protected against political retribution.
Those individuals deserve to be protected from Trump retribution. That was your first test. You failed it.
By saying all FBI employees should be protected?
That is a test of professional diligence.
Like, the question should have been, will you protect everybody from political prosecution? Although that's a meaningless thing because nobody will admit that prosecution is political in nature. But it's kind of a dumb question because, like, are you going to protect all of them? Well, what if they actually did do bad things? Then you wouldn't want to protect them, right? It's kind of a dumb question. But this is all just like clip farming, so fuck it.
Because it is the measure of whether you will stand up and say no to the president if he gives you an unlawful or illegal order. Let me turn to the J6 choir. You know who the J6 prison choir is, don't you?
It's been referenced earlier, yes.
And you know about the song that, in fact, you produced, you promoted, and you used to, as you put it, raise awareness and support for the political prisoners still locked in jail. Those J6 choir, were they political prisoners?
I don't know everyone in the J6 choir.
That's what you said.
I don't know every single person.
That's not how I read it, Senator.
This is your tweet. That's your whole statement.
Well,
you won't stand behind your own statements made in tweets, countless of them. As a matter of fact, as you put it to Steve Bannon on his show, then we went into a studio and recorded it, mastered it, digitized it, and put it as a song, now releasing it exclusively in the War Room. That was the J6 prison choir song.
And all proceeds were given away to charity to help families.
And you called them political prisoners. Julian Cater, do you know what he did?
I don't know who that is, Senator.
Well, he's one of the J6 prison choir.
You seem to know more about it than I do.
Identified in a court filing. And you're saying now you don't know who he is? You glorified him and the rest of that choir? He's the one who sprayed U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick with pepper spray. Officer Sicknick died the next day. Cater admitted his violence. He pleaded guilty to assaulting assaulting political officer, a police officer. Do you believe that Julian Cater was a political prisoner?
Senator, I'm not familiar with his case. You seem to know a lot more about it than I do. And as I've said repeatedly, I will always utilize my resources to help Americans in need, which is what I was trying to do here. And I've never once advocated for political violence or violence against law enforcement.
Ryan Nichols. Ryan Nichols also pleaded guilty to assault.
Is the point of these hearings in this day and age just a formality so the American people can hear? I can't imagine anyone was undecided before any of these people walked in, right? Correct. I believe so, yeah. And how, like, when you say anyone was undecided, you mean the senators voting, yeah. Unless somebody, like, really fucks up. I don't know if these changed any of the recent, because, like, the Matt Gaetz stuff, that was before his hearing, right? Gabbard really fucked up. If Gabbard didn't get in, I would have a little bit of hope. Is there any news on whether or not she's expected to not survive the process?
Assaulting a police officer. He was one of the J6 choir. He pushed the crowd against officers, defending a door to the Capitol, and sprayed officers with pepper spray. Was Ryan Nichols a political prisoner?
Same answer, Senator.
How about Jordan Mink, another member of the J6 choir?
I don't know who he is.
James McGrew, a political prisoner?
I don't know who that is.
James McGrew pushed and struck officers and launched a handrail toward them. And you glorified him. You promoted and produced a song to raise money for them.
Metal Gear?
And you now want us to believe you don't know who they are?
No part of that song or anything I've done in my 16 years of government service glorifies or advocates for violence against law enforcement. And the fact that you would be willing to say that in front of these people in the American audience shows how much of a divide we actually have to restore a law enforcement that is constitutionally based, de-weaponized, and depoliticized. You have my commitment to do that. In your office, we had a lot of common ground. I'm committed to working with you on things like Section 230 and making sure the citizens of Connecticut aren't pillaged by Chinese fentanyl.
I welcome your statement, Mr. Patel, but it doesn't answer my question. And it doesn't go to your credibility in denying you know who these people are after. And I have to say, in this tweet and in others, I have a raft of them. I'm going to ask the chairman that they be made a part of the record, if there's no objection.
Without objection.
You glorified, you promoted, you supported these individuals. Ronald Sadlin, he struck an officer in the head, hand, and shoulders and grabbed another officer. Was he a political prisoner?
I don't know who that is, Senator.
Well, the simple fact is that you knew about the J6 choir. You knew what they did in assaulting and endangering police officers who sought to defend the Capitol on that day, were severely injured, and some, as a consequence, died. I think the FBI deserves better. The men and women of the FBI.
Okay.
Snowden got mad at his employer that he didn't get the promotion that he wanted and started harvesting information.
What is this?
Time has expired. Senator Langford.
Tulsi, it's good to see you again. Thanks for the time that we got a chance to be able to spend together, to be able to talk through a lot of these issues. Thanks for your service to the country, both in Congress, though you were in the wrong party at the time, and your service to the country through your service there, including in my great state in Oklahoma, that you had the opportunity to be able to serve there. I want to give an opportunity for you to be able to answer a few things on it, and I want to set some context. There's been a lot of questions about 702 and about Edward Snowden, and it may seem like this is repetitive to be able to come through it, but there are thousands of intelligence employees and folks that they've also taken an oath to the country and to the Constitution. They serve our country every day. They're the folks that don't have a uniform on, that no one ever says thank you to them, and no one ever buys them lunch.
So as a quick catch up, this is my very layman's overview of it because I don't know all the super details. This is just kind of what I've gathered. But originally Snowden, huge hero, releases all this information that shows us how evil and bad the government is. There's a degree of truth to this, that there might be, I think, some overreach of the CIA or the FBI, like internally into the United States, that is maybe improper, or they're collecting more data than maybe we realize. However, I think that as more details came out, I think people look at it a little bit strange. It's like, okay, well, hold on. Snowden was kind of irritated about work shit. He ended up dumping a whole bunch of data without doing any responsible redacting of anything and then shipping it basically to U.S. enemies like Julian Assange, who, make no mistake, whether he says some good things sometimes or not, he is an enemy of the United States, and he does not like the United States, and he wants to see the U.S. fail, or at least the U.S. as a strong federal government that stands for whatever values it does. Edward Snowden is not a fan of the United States, and then Edward Snowden basically retreated to Russia afterwards, so people don't have, I think people in security don't have the best view of Edward Snowden, and then people who are, I think if you've dug into it a bit more, his motivations don't seem quite as pure as originally they sounded, but yeah.
People don't know who they are. But they every day put their lives on the line, and they work very hard to be able to protect Americans. And when Edward Snowden got mad at his employer that he didn't get the promotion that he wanted and started harvesting information, and then found some things that he didn't like on it, and then kept going, and then released them to media and went to China, and then went from China to Russia and became a Russian citizen and continued to be able to layer out intelligence unrelated to the civil liberties of any American, and then said, I have more and I can release them anytime I want, they don't see him as brave. They see him as a traitor. And the concern among so many here, and I think what a lot of the folks in the intelligence community that you'd have the responsibility to oversight is, they want to hear that you also believe the same thing, that not just he broke the law, but that he's a traitor, because they don't want that to ever happen again. And all the sources that they had, that they trusted and that trusted them, now their lives were at risk. And all the programs that they had that were determined lawful all collapsed, and that intelligence then was gone, and the president didn't have access to a lot of information for decision making. So this is a big deal to everybody here, because it's a big deal to everybody that you'll also oversee in that role as well. And so it's helpful for them to be able to hear your heart on this. So was Edward Snowden a traitor?
Senator, my heart is with my commitment to our Constitution.
Tulsi loves anything having to do with anti-U.S. or hating the United States or anything else. I would be shocked if she says anything negative about Snowden in any of these things, other than he was an American hero and patriot, but we'll find out.
In our nation's security.
Ours too.
Thank you. Yeah. I have shown throughout my almost 22 years of service in the military, as well as my time in Congress, how seriously I take the privilege of having access to classified information and our nation's secrets. And that's why I'm committed, if confirmed, as Director of National Intelligence, to join you in making sure that there is no future Snowden-type leak. And I would do so by taking 4 specific actions. Number 1, again, to make sure that there are no illegal and unconstitutional programs, limiting in a big way those who have access to our nation's top secrets through security clearance reform, making sure that every single person in the workforce knows about the legal whistleblower channels available to them, and making sure that there's a direct line available to me should anyone have concerns. If people choose to step outside of those legal channels to raise any concerns about programs or actions that exist within the intelligence community that are classified, there will be no excuse to do so, and they should be charged and prosecuted under the law.
Was he a traitor at the time when he took America's secrets, released them in public, and then ran to China and became a Russian citizen?
Senator, I'm focused on the future and how we can prevent something like this from happening again.
So you would have the responsibility to be able to give counsel to the president, which is a great privilege. You already have his ear, quite frankly, and you all have a great relationship on that, which is very beneficial. But when President Trump chose to take the strike on Soleimani, he was also at that same time going through an impeachment in the House. And you were kind of tough on him at the time about that. You called it a declaration of war. You said that the Soleimani strike will lead to an outcome that will further undermine our national security. As a member of Congress, I also take seriously declaration of war and our responsibility in that. He was acting in a way that he came out and the intelligence gave that Soleimani was in the process of preparing a strike on American citizens and those folks that were in the field at the time. I guess the question that I have is, the ODNI will sit with the president, will provide options to the president and say, here are the options that you could take. Would you have presented a Soleimani strike at that time, looking back at it now in retrospect, and saying this is an option you could take, and here's how to be able to do it?
No.
Thank you, Senator. It's an important question.
No way.
If confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I would make sure that
She's going to say, I would make sure the president is aware of all the information at all points of time about threats to American citizens, and we would act appropriately or something. I don't think she's in favor of U.S. doing anything internationally, just from what I've heard, but we'll see, I guess.
The president has all of the objective analysis and intelligence reporting so that he can make that best informed decision, including
all of the options and actions that he has available to him, which should exist alongside an assessment of what the possible repercussions or responses to those actions may be. My own personal views have no place in that assessment and that providing to the president and his advisors with all of those options available.
Thank you, Senator Langford. Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to repeat my colleague's question to you. Thank you for being here to answer these questions and for your service.
Apparently, she was asked prior to Langford's questioning about the Snowden thing, and that's why I repeated it. How many people repeat this question, I guess? Oh, Jesus. Let me use the restroom real quick. 1 sec.